Hey parents, welcome back to Teenager Tuesday. We are continuing in our series of learning from Melanie Domen, and the author of that parenting book and longtime hoper, you and your husband. And we didn't talk about your kids last week.
That's right.
You have a bunch of kids.
I know.
Micah's on the worship team. Well, you talk about your kids.
Yes. Okay, so we've raised these kids up in the church in Hope for the past 20 years. Our oldest, McKay, is a senior at A&M.
Okay.
And then we have our only boy, Brock, who is a junior at Baylor. And then we have Micah, as you said. She's 16, and she's on the worship team here at Hope. And then we have our 13-year-old Bliss, who's a 7th grader in the middle school program.
Yeah.
So,
man, 22 years of being a parent.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
I've been a parent for about a year and a half with two littles, but man, 22 years. Is it, you hear the stereotype so much of like time flies. Does it feel that way?
It really does.
Yeah.
Well, it is so hard not to stop every single parent. And I even stopped you in the hallway at church the other day. And I was like, I promise, because you're so sleep deprived.
Yes.
And y'all have these 2 little babies. And I'm like, oh, it really goes so fast, I promise. And every single stage gets more and more fun. Yes, even these, everybody says, wait till they're teenagers. Really, honestly, this teenage stage, it is really fun.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. Well, and I love, one thing I think that a lot of parents feel is this need to give so much independence for their growth or whatever, that they pull back and give a ton of space, but almost sometimes accidentally like pulling out,
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not being like an intentionally absent parent, but maybe not making memories with their teenagers, their middle schoolers, high schoolers, where they could if they I don't know why so many parents tend to feel that way. I don't think someone is telling everybody that, of like, well, you better walk away to let them figure everything out. But you talk about cultivating and building kind of relationship with your middle schooler, your high schooler. Tell us more about that.
Yes. Okay. So you said you don't know why parents feel the need to pull back. And the reality is because our kids are pushing us. They are pushing us out of their lives, and it can be really, really hurtful at this age, because our teenagers are really wanting to, that our role in their life is from being kind of like their closest best friend to now they are really a lot more focused on their peers and their friends, and we are just kind of getting in the way of their independence. And so many times parents can take those signs to think, oh, well, they don't need me. They don't want me to be a part of their life, so I guess I will just step back. But the reality is this is such an important time to hang on and to have grit as a parent and just to keep pursuing them, even though they are acting like you are the worst human in the world.
And embarrassing.
We are so embarrassing. Just our breathing, Will, is so embarrassing. And so we have to just we do have to be the grown-up. And we have to realize I'm not in middle school anymore, or I'm not in high school anymore. I am big enough to handle this. My confidence can handle being pushed away a couple of times.
Yeah, which rejection never feels fine, no matter how mature or older you get or experienced. Being left unread, or like not wanting to be, your student doesn't invite you to something that's going on at school or something. That never feels good.
It doesn't. No. It doesn't. And especially this little human that you have loved for so long. I mean, as you know, you already love your little babies so much, right? And you've been your oldest is 14 months?
16.
16 months, right? And so so all of this time that you've poured into your kids, that can just really hurt. But the reality is that our connection and our relationship with our kids is the most important part of our parenting. More than anything else that we do, we have to keep that strong connection. Because relationship truly is the foundation of our parenting. Rules without relationship will just end up in rebellion. Consequences without relationship will end up in resentment.
Yeah.
And then even gifts. We can give our kids all the gifts that we could possibly buy, but they will just feel like bribes without relationship.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so that is the importance of relationship and the importance of doing everything in our power to keep those relationships strong, even when they are pushing us away.
Yeah.
So how do we foster strong
Yeah.
relationships
Yeah.
with our teenagers? Well, first of all, we just need to be present. We just need to be there, and we need to pursue them, and we need to have time with them without our phones and without their phones. So whenever you still have the wonderful privilege of driving these middle schoolers around, and they are busy and they're going all over the place, use that time in the car to ask good questions and say, okay, if it's time in the car, I don't want to have our screens. Let's put our screens out.
I love that in the car. We've talked about that over dinner.
Yeah.
Around a table. But I haven't thought about that in the car.
Yeah.
That's good.
The car is a perfect time because you are kind of just shoulder to shoulder. You're not like staring at them in the face. And so it's a little easier for them to open up. One of the things I always ask my teenagers is I always ask about lunch, especially those middle schoolers.
Yeah.
Because you can find out a lot about their day if you ask about lunch.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
So if they, you can ask, well, who'd you sit with at lunch today? That's an important thing, especially to a middle schooler.
So smart.
Right? That shows you like how they are feeling with their friends.
Yeah.
And like, oh my goodness, you always usually sit with so-and-so, but you're not sitting with them. Oh, why? Well, now you have a conversation starter, right? And then another, you want to know if your child is sitting by themselves at lunch.
Yeah.
Or maybe they went in the bathroom and they cried because something really terrible happened, right? That's a really good way to know actually how your kid's day was, is to ask about lunch.
Yeah.
Another thing, another point of connection, like you mentioned, is sitting around the dinner table. And that is really, really hard. It's like if I'm fully honest with you, we might sit around the table and eat together twice a week because our schedules are so busy, especially with Micah as a junior. She's all over the place. And Bliss has volleyball and church and all of these things, right? And so what we try to do is if we're going to just run through Chick-fil-A, parents, please don't judge me. But we're going to, like tonight, we're going to run through Chick-fil-A before volleyball. So what we'll do is we will pull over and we will sit in the car and we will turn around and look at each other while we're eating.
Okay.
Right? Because this is a good time to fellowship and to get to know each other in our days, even while in the car, because it's so easy just to quickly, okay, eat, okay, now go. And another time is bedtime, even with teenagers, because many times they are ready to talk at night.
Yeah.
That is like whenever they are finally ready to talk. Our son, we used to call him 10 o'clock Brock because he would be quiet and just have one-word answers all day.
Yeah.
And then around 10 o'clock, he just came alive. We could not figure it out. And to this day, he is still doing that.
Really?
If I remember, Will, I can't remember when this was, but you had a really fun card game when you were, I think whenever you were dating Kelsey.
Yeah, our first date.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, okay, why don't you share about that?
Yeah, it was COVID, and we met online, and so our first date was going to be a FaceTime. So I didn't want it to feel awkward and forced or anything, so I assigned a question to every card in a deck of cards. And then the conversation felt more like a game, and it was easy to it was just less, it wasn't forced conversation. You just flipped a card, and that was part of the game. And so it just made it broke the ice quicker on conversations.
And so I love that so much. I asked you to send me your list, and I use that with my kids.
Oh, cool.
And so it helps to have those fun questions that feel a little less pressure, right? And so, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Just to help if you're thinking, I don't know what to talk to my kids about.
Can I ask you this? If for parents up there that they're so tired at the end of the day, they're working their butt off, or they're doing everything to keep the family together. They work their butt off, then keep the house together and family together and take the kids to all the things and everything. What is y'all's mindset going into that when Brock wants to talk at 10 p.m. and y'all are tired? Or you get home and you're like, oof, I just want to turn on the TV and zone out for just an hour,
Right.
What is it that you and how do y'all go into that? Like, how do you flip the switch? You're like, no, this is important.
Right, you're right. I mean, we are tired. We are exhausted. We're getting up early and just cranking through the day, but it's just worth it, Will. So Jeff and I we're tired, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
I remember, we are raising the children, the adults actually, rather, that we are going to want to hang out with one day.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And these conversations, they start now.
Yeah.
Right? And so listening to the little things will help them tell you about the big things. And so many times just staying up and listening to those little things that they have to share, even if it's late at night, one day they'll tell you about the big things. I remember Brock, this past, he's 20, and this past New Year's Eve, he went to the Baylor Bowl game in Houston. And a lot of his fraternity brothers were going out and partying that night in Houston. And he's like, no, I want to get home because I want to be home with my family to celebrate New Year's Eve.
Oh, wow.
And so he came home because he wanted to be with us for New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And that was just such an honor to me. And we sat by the fire, and I was exhausted because, we had to stay up till midnight, of course. But then he wanted to tell me about all of the fun things.
Yeah.
And so he just, we were outside by a little campfire, and he just kept putting logs on the fire because he wanted to keep having this conversation.
Yeah.
And so that's why we stay up late, and that's why we pour into our kids in these years, because we want to be sitting out there with them, whether it is a real fire or just a virtual fire, and have our kids continue to put logs on that fire.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. And thankfully, with the behavior that is his choice, y'all have raised in such a way, and he's made the decisions to want to come home and do that kind of stuff. That's cool. That's really cool. Parents, we'll be back next week. For now, always remember, you can do this. It's worth it. You can do this. You're not alone. God is with you, and so are we. Have a great week.